addicts, welcome back to the American Girl Addiction. So I've really been struggling with my I'm doing, as you might know, a kind of comprehensive, critical, mostly unbiased viewing and ranking of all of the American Girl dolls. I'm doing Girl of the Year, and then I'm planning on doing the historicals and the friend dolls. But that video has been taking a while, partially because I tend to be a very critical person, and I'm also very verbose, and I would prefer to keep things positive and also kind of quick on the channel right now. So I decided I was going to do this fun, hopefully it'll be fun, video, a little tier ranking of all of the dolls that is more based on my personal feelings about them rather than trying to look at them through, as I said, like a critical, mostly unbiased lens. I have a few categories here. I have the top category, which is practically perfect in every way. So these are dolls about whom I have very few complaints. I think American Girl did great things with them, and they just really stand out among all of them. Right below that one is Setting the Bar. So these are dolls that are just great. There might be something that could have been done better, or like little just tiny tweaks, but overall it's really great. They're just not necessarily as close to perfect as I think American Girl can go. The third category from the top is Could Have Been Amazing. So these are dolls whom had the potential and had a lot of great things there where they could have been perfect or great. But there were just little things that weren't there or were there that kind of didn't allow the doll to elevate as high as she could have been. Following that category is meh. It's kind of in the middle. These are ones where I don't have very strong opinions about them, and they don't really fit into any of the other categories. So, for example, I wouldn't say that they could have been amazing because they didn't necessarily have something like, maybe they didn't have the coolest concept, or they were a little repetitive or something like that. But they also weren't unnecessary, which is the third from the bottom. And basically that category exists for, there's some dolls who aren't bad. I still like them. I like all of them, even when I rant about them. I really do like them all. But they didn't need to be there, or I don't necessarily feel like they added anything to the brand, but I still wouldn't say that poor decisions were made with them, except that maybe they just didn't stand out as much, or they were kind of repeating some ideas or theming from other dolls. Then we have this choices were made, bad choices, which is basically, these are dolls where I think American Girl did a misstep, and there were actually, like I said, some not so great choices made with how they did the certain doll. And then we have this category. Now, it's worth noting, this is not technically the worst category in terms of quality. There might be a doll, and I'll kind of say what happens, where they're actually well made, or their story's well written, or something like whatever. But there's something about them that just leaves a bad taste in my mouth, or there's some kind of backstory for that, and just it frustrates me about them. So, because we're going reverse chronologically, we're going, well, except for Girl of the Year 2022, who it's assumed her name is Corinne. I'm just going to call her Corinne. At the end of the video, I'm going to say where I'm placing her for now. But I'm saving her for last because, one, I could not find. I customized this tier list completely. Its original creator. Whoops. It's not where she goes. Oh, man. The original creator is right here. I think it's Blackwood Sis. But, one, Corinne isn't here as a picture, so I can't really rank her. And also, because I don't know that much about her, I feel like it'd be better to save her until the end. That way I could more easily edit if something crazy comes along, like new leaks or whatever. All right, Maritza, I'm going to put probably into meh. From what I've seen of her story, it's okay. It's very short. Her collection is basically non-existent, and I'm really not a huge fan. My biggest problem with her, and by extension the other World by Us dolls, is I don't feel like they were created as complete dolls. And you're going to hear this complaint more in the video, where I feel like because they wanted them to be friends and whatever, none of them is a complete doll. They all feel like each other's friend doll. You know, they have like just a couple outfits, whatever. And that's very disappointing because I don't think any of these dolls got the development that they deserve. I'm going to put Yvette into could have been amazing. If she had more stuff, her style's okay. I like that she has bright colors. She is very unique. I like how she looks. I wish that American Girl had another doll come out. Maybe like her, if they had like sisters. I know they're doing sisters with Corinne and whatever, but it kind of would have been cool to see if we'd had sisters and like one slightly darker, one slightly lighter, you know, and like we could have had both of them. What's her, is Mccaina's sister Mari? I don't remember, which we're going to get to that in a sec. But yeah, like, give Yvette, you know, maybe a sister, and she could have been the doll that matches Yvette. Because I'm very glad they made Yvette. I think she's super cute. I like her stuff. But I do also like the prototypes of her. And I understand why people are frustrated at the changes that American Girl made. And I actually agree with most of the criticisms about how they handled... I guess I'll just say this and kind of bring it back to Maritza, because kind of got to talk about all these dolls together. It's very interesting that for their diversity line... I'm going to get downvotes here. For their diversity line, they made a doll who basically... she has slightly richer colors than Joss. I talked about it in my Maritza video. But she basically looks like she could be Joss's older sister. And she's just a little more tan and slightly darker hair and eyes. Otherwise, they look like sisters. And she's one of them. She looks whiter than most of American Girl's previous dolls of color. And then they have Yvette, who looks whiter than the doll who is 1/8 Brazilian. So that's an interesting choice for American Girl. Then we have Mccaina, and I'm also going to put her in... Okay, this is hard. Because in terms of her story and characterization, I like Mccaina as a character from what I've seen of her. I haven't read her whole book. But then we get to the doll herself. So the character and the story, I think, is actually really interesting. I like that they made a doll who is into fashion. Similarly, I like that Maritza's interests are slightly more different from the normal ones. But in terms of Mccaina, I have a few issues with her design. I think that her outfits, the ones that are available for pre-order, they're not very attractive, and I'm not fans of them, like, at all. And her meat outfit is pretty cute, but then we get her face mold, and my problem with her face mold is, if she was supposed to be 9 and she wasn't wearing any makeup, I would have no problem with her face mold whatsoever. She doesn't look like an American Girl, but it's fine, you know. We kind of have that slightly Welly Wisher-esque look. I personally think Nanea and Corinne, from what I've seen of her, the two of them are absolutely adorable. My problem with Mccaina is she's supposed to be 13, and they used the face mold that is typically used when the doll is supposed to look super young. And I don't think she works as a 13-year-old. And I'm not a huge fan of, like, the doll herself, but I do understand what American Girl is going for. I'm probably going to put her in meh under Maritza. I kind of feel like they have the opposite problem of where Maritza is a really well-designed doll, but I feel like her story and theming could use a little work. I think everything for Mccaina works from what I can tell, except like the doll and her collection. Kira is unnecessary. She's another environmentalist doll. I talked about it in my Courtney video. I'm not one of those like, oh, it's another blonde doll or it's another white doll, in terms of like, I want unique dolls. I want dolls who, because I have so many of them, where they really feel like themselves. Kira feels like Blair in Caroline's wig that's been brushed until it's all straight and straggly, in like a Kylie or Leah-esque aesthetic. And that's very disappointing. I do love her name, Kira, but I just think that out of a lot of dolls, doesn't need to exist. Joss, I'm going to put into setting the bar. So she's the highest one so far. I love Joss as a doll. I love her as a character. I'm not a fan of her collection. I think it was overall pretty weak. It ranged from to too expensive for what we're getting. So I would have liked for her to have more outfits, especially more casual outfits. She has a nice style, but every single one of her outfits is either like surfing or cheerleader themed, and it would have been nice if she had more like casual outfits and just more in general. Blair is gonna go into meh, probably at the top, just because she actually had a collection. I really like Blair's collection. Doll is fine. She doesn't stand out that much. Her story was boring from what I remember from reading it. I do really like her name, but yeah, she's just alright. Luciana is all... I'm going to put her here, right above Joss, because one, her collection could have used a little work. I wish her name stood out slightly more from American Girl's other dolls. They have a lot of like M and L names, which is kind of weird. Also wish American Girl had gotten permission to use the astronomer's aesthetic. That's kind of disappointing, but Luciana is a pretty great doll, so she's up here, All the girls of the year should try, or contemporary characters, should try to at least be on, Luciana and Joss's level. Z is just kind of meh. She's super cute, but I wasn't a huge fan of her story, and her collection wasn't very interesting. And I also don't like her name. I don't like that it's just a letter, Z. Like, it couldn't even be Z-E-E or anything. Like, it's just Z. That's kind of weird. Like, not a huge fan.